probably wondering why I would go through this process. And to explain that, I think a little history lesson is in order. Drag was invented by the Elizabethan theater. The word itself is an abbreviation for dressed as girl, coined by a man that went by the name of Shakespeare. Because at the time, being in the theater was a man's job, and the ladies weren't allowed. Nowadays, men in theater are considered effeminate. Crazy how these things come full circle, isn't it? No, not really. Because like social mores, gender is a social construct. Gender is determined by appearance and behavior that is deemed socially acceptable based on the business between your legs. Most educated people these days understand and embrace the fact that there's masculinity and femininity in everyone, which, sadly, is a relatively new idea to the general public, but something drag queens and genderqueers have been fighting to prove since the beginning of modern society. The Stonewall Riots of 1969 marked the turning point of the queer liberation movement. In 1969, the Stonewall Inn was the only gay bar in New York City that allowed dancing. No, this isn't the plot to Footloose. At the time, being a homosexual, or genderqueer, was illegal, so the legitimate businesses pretended that they had no idea their clientele was gay, which is a lot easier to do when your patrons aren't all over each other, hence, no dancing. Thankfully, the Stonewall Inn was owned and operated by the mob, which paid off the police in order to operate as a gay bar, and in order to monopolize on the gay demographic, you need a dance floor. Obviously, when you're the only fun place in town, word spreads. Because of the Stonewall Inn's reputation, the police raided the bar constantly. During these raids, if two people of the same sex were dancing, or even touching, they were arrested. If someone was wearing clothing that didn't match the sex on their identification, they were subjected to a very public and humiliating gender check, then arrested. Being brutally assaulted was a commonplace prelude to the arrest. A stay at a psychiatric institution then often followed an arrest because being queer was not only illegal, but it was considered a mental disorder. Finally, during the raid on June 28, 1969, the crowd decided, fuck this shit, and fought back. The appropriately dressed, hands to themselves queers, who were kicked out of the bar that night, started throwing coins and shouting things along the lines of, "Did the mob miss a payment?" at the police. The scene got louder and the crowd grew into the hundreds, and the scene quickly escalated. A drag queen threw the first brick, sparking not only the intensity of this riot, but also a series of riots. The riots in turn sparked fury and the increase of organizations and activism pushing the queer liberation movement into full force. With one brick, Miss Sylvia made the queer community a force to be reckoned with. Famous drag queens like RuPaul, the Lady Bunny, David Bowie, let's be real here, Divine, and countless others, along with movies and television like The Rocky Horror Picture Show, Hedwig and the Angry Inch, The Birdcage, Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, and most recently, RuPaul's Drag Race, to name a few, have broken drag into the mainstream, giving these gender benders a larger platform to use their humor and talents to bring attention to societal issues regarding the queer community, the reality of gender fluidity, all while inspiring people to be themselves, the same way local drag queens have been doing in bars and nightclubs for decades. Being a firm believer that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, I decided to walk a mile in size 13 heels. This video, and the process of transformation I went through, is an ode to the bravery of drag queens and genderqueer individuals who fought and continue to fight for equality. It's a thank you for proudly proclaiming that you are different from the norm, no matter the consequences, and using your abilities to entertain, educate, and create change, because without you, my life as a gay man would be drastically impoverished in comparison to the life I live today. In the words of Miss Vita Boheme, try to describe her and not use the word statuesque.